What if I told you one of the most powerful clapbacks to a conservative Christian leader came from a Democrat who quoted the Bible better than he could? Mike Huckabee thought he was stepping into a CNN studio to deliver a lesson on morality, but instead, he was dismantled, verse by verse, by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, armed only with the words of Jesus. What happened stunned millions and could reshape how America views faith and politics. Huckabee entered the CNN studio believing he'd teach a young Democrat about Christianity and moral values. Instead, the former Arkansas governor, presidential candidate, and Baptist preacher was left speechless. Sitting across from him was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, 42 years old, civil rights attorney, progressive Democrat, and lifelong Baptist. For days, Huckabee and conservative outlets had mocked her as proof of what's wrong with progressive Christians. They accused her of cherry-picking scripture and ignoring real biblical values. But Crockett didn't flinch. She was ready. When Anderson Cooper opened the segment on faith and politics, Huckabee came out swinging. He attacked Crockett's values, her faith, and her moral compass. He accused her of supporting sin, undermining families, and pushing secularism. He claimed she spoke about justice without understanding biblical righteousness. For 10 straight minutes, he preached a sermon he had probably delivered hundreds of times. Crockett, however, simply sat, calm, focused, taking notes. Now, when it was her turn, she didn't get defensive. She went straight to the heart of the matter. "Governor Huckabee," she began, "what does Jesus say in Matthew 25 about how we'll be judged?" But the studio went quiet. Huckabee blinked, muttered something about sheep and goats. "That's right," Crockett replied, seizing control. "The final judgment. Shall I quote it?" But before he could answer, she read directly from her phone. "I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Silence filled the room. Huckabee's smile faded. "Notice," Crockett continued, "Jesus doesn't mention abortion here. He doesn't mention same-sex marriage. He doesn't talk about taxes or culture wars. The only standard he gives for heaven or hell is how we treat the poor, the sick, the immigrant, and the prisoner." Looking Huckabee in the eye, she asked, "So if you oppose every single one of those things, Governor, what does that say about your version of Christian morality?" Huckabee tried to interject, but Crockett pressed on. Verse after verse, she laid out her case like a seasoned attorney. Matthew 19 verse 21. "Sell all your possessions and give to the poor." Luke 4 verse 18. "Good news to the poor, freedom for the prisoners." Matthew 8. Jesus heals the man with leprosy, touching the unclean. "You say I'm not a real Christian because I back feeding programs, healthcare, and immigration reform," she told him. "But Jesus said those very things determine salvation." Then came the knockout line. Jesus never said, "I was a corporation and you gave me tax cuts." He never said, "I was a gun manufacturer and you defended my profits." He never said, "I was a pharmaceutical company and you let me price gouge the sick." The studio was electric. Anderson Cooper looked floored. Conservatives sat in silence while progressives leaned forward. "Your version of faith," Crockett said, "asks if people deserve help before giving it. But Jesus never said, 'I was hungry and you checked my employment status first.'" She continued with Isaiah 58, "Loose the chains of injustice, share your food, shelter the poor." Proverbs 31, "Defend the rights of the needy." Micah 6 verse 8, "Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly." Huckabee tried one last time, "But you support abortion and same-sex marriage. You're the one cherry-picking." Unfazed, Crockett replied, "The word abortion appears 0 times in Scripture. Same-sex marriage, 0. But caring for the poor? Dozens. Welcoming immigrants? Direct commands. Healing the sick? Over and over. So, Governor, if anyone's cherry-picking, it isn't me." She paused, then delivered the line that went viral. You've spent your career telling Christians they must choose between faith and politics. But maybe the real question is, how can someone claim to follow Jesus while rejecting everything he said defines salvation? The audience erupted. Social media exploded. Progressive Christians cheered, but even many conservatives listened. Evangelical leaders like Beth Moore voiced support. Pastors questioned why Matthew 25 had been ignored in sermons. Bible study groups revisited Jesus' words on justice, compassion, and poverty. Within days, Huckabee quietly deleted his attack post without explanation. Meanwhile, Crockett was invited to churches, universities, and forums nationwide. Her message was simple. Caring for the poor isn't socialism, it's scripture. Justice isn't partisan, it's gospel. Because in that studio, she didn't win by arguing politics. She won by holding conservatives to their own standard, the Bible itself. And when she opened it, the words of Jesus spoke louder than any sermon Huckabee had ever preached.